went. And this is one of the main questions people ask themselves at the beginning when they hear about such technological revolutions which are happening now with AI. So my first question, of course, to the panelists is, how many years will it take until we don't have any tech writers anymore or don't need them anymore?
Drop a number. It depends on how you define technical writer. I just talked to some colleagues in the break, and they said they measured the amount of time they spent on actually writing stuff, and it's in the range of 20%. And the rest is collecting, assembling documents, managing metadata, understanding product configurations and stuff like that. So I think it's already changed. And it's just a continuation of the change in our profession. So it has already started years ago. So
you had some job descriptions at the end of your presentation.
Yes.
You made some proposals. Do you remember them?
Yeah, of course.
So
I wrote the slide.
Help us with it.
No, it's for instance, information architecture. A lot of you have introduced CCMSs. You have defined XML structures. You have defined metadata models. That's information architecture. And information architect is one of those professions that we are going to need. Another one is knowledge engineers, so people who are designing metadata models or data models in general. So we will see more of this. That's my opinion.
Professor Schildgen, you said you don't believe that technical writers are superfluous also.
Yes, I think the job will change, of course, but the demand will increase. The demand always increased in the last year, so the demand on more documentation, internationalization of documentation, software documentation is more needed than 20 years ago, and 50 years ago there was no software documentation. So the demand is always increasing. So it is a good sign that we now have supporting tools for that.
And the demographic factor is very important, of course. When you look at me, all these boomers like me, we will be leaving our jobs in the next 5 to 10 years. And then the young ones have to pay all the taxes and so on to pay for our rent. And so productivity has to be leveraged. And that will be maybe one of the other factors that will be important. Less people doing more work. But what do you think, Sarah?
I don't recall signing up for more work. I think that if you look at other kinds of technological innovations, and the one that I like to fall back on is actually the printing press. So we'll go back 500 or maybe 1,000 years, depending. The jobs that were available before the printing press came along were, if you look at it, they were divided and they were specialized, and there were far more of them because there was far more demand. And so I think you'll see something very similar happen where, as you were saying, the jobs are going to subdivide into all these specialties that people will need to do and do better or at a more in-depth level. When you look at knowledge capture, so if you look at something like knowledge graphs, which are very, very early, and I wrote an article in January predicting that this would be the year of the knowledge graph, which was clearly incorrect. But knowledge graphs require us to think very carefully about how information is connected and what the relationships are and how we capture those relationships and manage them and use them. Now, the AI can sit over the top of that and take advantage of that work, but somebody has to do the work of understanding those relationships. So getting back to content strategy, to information architecture, and more broadly knowledge management, there are a lot of jobs there that will need to happen. If you are the technical writer who spends most of their time not thinking too carefully and writing some really boring procedures and not adding a lot of value to that content and then reformatting it 16 times until it looks really nice because you think purple bullets are really fun, yes, you are in trouble. If you're adding more value than that, it'll be fine.
That means, under the bottom line, things will change and tech writers will have to change, definitely. What's your guess, Fabrice?
Am I still connected?
Ah, you have. Oh,
I don't know.
I don't know.
This one then.
Yeah.
I don't agree with you fully. Yeah, let's start a debate. I think that AI, like you say, you need a knowledge graph, understand the relationship. We've run some tests. You can take a flat text and ask a knowledge graph to generate a flat text and ask AI to generate a knowledge graph. They are good at it, understand, extract the relationship, all that modeling, all that thing. I think it's going to be either useless or managed by the AI. What I think is interesting is redefining what a tech writer is here for. What is the job? For me, it's about truthfulness, applicability, and being comprehensive. Who takes responsibility for that? You can write content one way or the other, put the bullets, but in your company, is everything that is written truthful? Is it applicable, meaning you have the metadata that says to what it can be used for, to what situation? And then comprehensive, because we always talk about what is written, but we don't talk about what is not written. Who can say, oh, by the way, we miss information on that subject, on that procedure, on that way of doing things? And maybe that's what GenAI may not be good at. I don't know yet. Like, can GenAI tell you what you are missing in your content? By looking at what people complain about, what they've...
If you would design a retraining program for tech writers, what would be on your agenda?
Taking responsibility for truthfulness, applicability, and comprehensiveness, and whatever the tools, whatever the technology. It's not a technology thing.
I would add metadata modeling or semantic networks in general, information architecture, stuff from marketing like a user journey and personas, which will be more important. Also comprehensive writing, actually, in order to see whether the stuff that comes out of the large language model is good or not. Yeah, these are some
that
ideas.
means that the core competencies are basically the same, but on top you have no other core competencies.
I would add an ethics class.
Ethics class.
I have that one. Yeah.
What's your idea as a professor for, you said you are training IT?
Yeah, we had the same discussion 20 years ago. I'm that old, but there was the term Web 2.0 or semantic web. So the web is created by humans, so text is there, and how can a machine extract information? And there was the idea, okay, the humans have to enrich websites with standardized tags, but nobody did that. Nobody writes on a restaurant page the opening hours in an XML format or something, so that a machine can understand that. Everybody writes it in a different way. So there were algorithms and tools that extracted that from Google and other sites. And now the same is again here, extracting the metadata from documentations so that machines can understand that. And that, I see many similarities there.
So are there any remarks from the audience or questions you would like to ask?
I have one more addition, if I may. I would put into the curriculum content lifecycle and how to combine different silos in the company via interfaces, because nobody wants to type technical data, right? We want to get that from the product information management, from the PLM system. And I think that's the technical writers need to take care of the content supply chain in the companies.
Does someone like to ask a question? Or Johanna, do you have questions from online? No, not yet. No one, no remarks. Okay. Axel, here's the microphone.
I had this question already in the last presentation. When you showed the Tony Spark example, you showed it from a UX perspective. And for me, the key takeaway from this scene is that he did not understand the problem because of what she said, or he, or whatever it is, but what she showed to him, so the visuals. And today, everything I heard was about text-based content. GenAI used to create text, to create translations, to create answers, to support questions. What do you think? What is the situation for visual content, and not just for graphics, but also for
interactive content, for video content, can I be more relaxed as a visual communicator? Do I just have to wait 2 more years until I'm in the same situation and we have the same discussion? Or is this kind of out of scope at the moment?
It did some trials, but for like information graphics, and I think you're very safe there because that's at the moment Gen AI can't do that. They can do illustrations and drawings and stuff like that. But when it comes to like 3D graphics or 2D technical representation, a wiring diagram and stuff like that, and also like a server architecture telling system architects which things are connected, interfaces, protocols, and stuff like that. That's I haven't seen that Gen AI generated.
And that's even simple content, isn't it? I mean, that's highly structured content. So if it gets more to freestyle, it might be even more difficult.
And that's the current state of text and images. So when we take a look in the future, a text says how to do something, but it does not say you do it wrong. So it doesn't see how you do it. So imagine you wear a glasses that show you an arrow, press here and don't do that. And so it supervises you how you do things. So this can be a new level of, yeah, we cannot call it writing anymore. It is more showing or, yeah, supporting.
Any other ideas about the video? Did we have a
Yeah,
video?
two things. One, there are video generation engines already that can generate video content off of structured content. I think your 2 years is about right. Yeah.
Okay, 2 years. Oh, this is the first answer to my question. 2 years.
2 years.
I mean, maybe it's 5, but it's not 50.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
It'll probably be next week.
There's another question here. Please hand over the microphone. Another Michael.
Thank
Very
you.
good name.
Not another question, just a comment to that. We're testing this right now using LLM models to program 3D modeling software. So basically with natural language, you give commands, you input photos, any kind of data about the product, and it transforms that into instructions to the 3D modeling software to create the model and the, for example, assembly animation. So I would give it 1 year.
Oh, okay, 1 year.
We're getting better.
Good. Another question or remark?
Yes. My question would be, we're very quality conscious, most of the people here. And I keep hearing, especially with stuff coming into the cloud, that it's not a question of having complete documentation anymore, or even necessarily very good documentation anymore, as long as it is good enough. So good enough, if it is in the eye of the beholder, it's essentially a race to the bottom. How do we get out of that we will not be replaced because people still need us to create good content, but that people simply don't care for good content? Because one of the good things about ChatGPT is it doesn't give us a list, it gives us an answer. But whether that answer is actually valid and good is a different question. And I see way too many people who simply don't care about the quality of the answer because it's so convenient.
Speaking as an American.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, because that ship has sailed for us, unless there are regulatory issues, and that's one of the big differences between here and in the US. But broadly, the job of technical communication is to enable people to do their job, right? It's to enable people to use the product, use the service, and be successful. So I think the question of good enough, the real question is it good enough to enable them to do their job? Does it get them close enough, even if it's not 100% perfect? And of course, again, if it's a medical device, we would like it to be very close to 100% perfect because of the implications of writing incorrect medical device documentation. But everything trends toward commoditization. Everything. So the only thing you can ever do is keep climbing that ladder into new skill sets. You can't stay here because you will get commoditized down.
You had that graph. That was very nice. more risk, less fun. That's
I agree here, because the definition of good is unclear to me here. Said writing good documentation. If good documentation means putting into the documentation a lot of tags so that the rendering on the screen is done that way so that it's easier to read. But if tomorrow the UX changes and you don't need the screens like that, and the UX and the way to communicate, you give answers through chat or voice-driven equipment, you don't need the tags anymore, maybe. So the definition of good will change. So it's more like truthful. Is it enough? Is it valid? But good is a bit, you know what I mean, unclear. If the energy today is the formatting part is too general. Yeah. Maybe we don't need formatting anymore.
Also, I mean, we've always struggled with that problem. People don't read documentation. So, and you won't get those people to read it. I mean,
but
they
people
don't
like to ask questions, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
if we prepare the content in a way that they can easily ask, I think we probably catch more people into the documentation than we do nowadays. Because, I mean, even when I look sometimes, sorry guys, at my colleagues, and I say, did you Google that? Have you looked into the... Oh no, I just went over and asked you. And that's like the natural behavior of people, that they want to ask somebody. And I think it's good to get our content there because it's the natural behavior of people.
Okay, another last remark. Okay.
Sorry, me again. Just want to add something. So we are primarily focusing on instructions in the consumer market, so consumer products. And we sometimes make a joke like these instructions are called, like, sorry my language, but cover your ass documents. So usually nobody's reading it until something happens, and then the companies are protected because they said, I warned you about that. On the other hand, I want to share one trend I see is that more and more of these retailers are going online. Customer reviews become much more important right now. And we see an increase, for example, of product returns. People are not happy with the product. They don't know how to use it. Instructions are not well written, and they return the products. And that becomes a huge cost factor of, like, I mean, look around like Aldi, Lidl, these kind of companies, DIY. And I believe that factor will influence the quality of instruction manuals because it's about money in this case. So I see that's a good trend. And our clients are looking for more sophisticated, easy to understand instructions because they don't want the product returns. So just wanted to add that part. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Another question. Many tech writers, I made the experience, find themselves by the tools they can use. They can use maybe some editors and some XML stuff or content management systems and whatever. And it was funny, at the same conference in Jerusalem, there was a lady who said, oh, so is AI abolishing PDFs? Obviously, she was defining herself as a person who delivers PDFs. And if there are no PDFs, her job is ruined. So that was maybe behind that question. So how many years will it take until all these tools, which you are very proud of at the moment you operate, will have disappeared?
You mean like content management systems, for instance?
For instance? This is a very delicate question.
That's a hot iron. Content management systems is about efficiency and authoring. And I think AI will speed up content management systems, but you still need to store the content somewhere. And you need the you need to link the silo of information modules with the silo of product information in some way, so that if you have an individualized product, you're able to deliver an individualized or even personalized documentation with it. And this is probably not possible without a repository of some kind in the content management system, which may be supported by AI, but will not be replaced. But it will be more automated than it is now, definitely. So what will probably go away is a technical writer that actually collects all the stuff and puts together a document. That will go away.
Maybe not the CCMS. I think I agree with you. You need to manage that content. You need to store it. You need to version it. Probably the tags, the fact that you're using complex tags and the super sophisticated data, for example.
But wouldn't it be enough to store everything in a flat file?
That's what I mean. So then you do that. That can be. You still need a CMS for storing that, but you still need to take time to tag everything and say this is a procedure, this is a step, this is a whatever, because you can write it flat and GenAI can tell you this is a procedure, those are the steps. Can read it for you and sort of tag it for you in some way. So why should you put effort in putting all the tags, all the structure? It's a paragraph, it's a table, column 1, column 2. If you can just write it as it is.
It's boring, of course.
Yeah, but it takes a lot of time. It
Yeah.
takes a lot of time to make this formatting and using these super sophisticated formats.
Sarah?
So, okay, what is the purpose of a CMS? And you said efficiency in authoring. I would say yes, and the purpose of a CMS is to make sure that your content has a single source of truth, right? That there is one copy of that piece of information, not 27 Word files. Word, by the way, will never die, just FYI. Sadly, that would be a great outcome from AI. But so the purpose of a CMS is a single source of truth, and then also incidentally some efficiency and reuse and some other cool things like that. Okay, so find me a way of doing single source of truth that doesn't involve a CMS, and the CMS will die. But I don't think AI can actually do that. AI is kind of like the opposite of the single source of truth. So we'll have to see how that goes.
When you talked about topics like this is a procedure and this is a concept or whatever, I think this will go away. Very bold statement maybe, but I think we will have modeled knowledge in the CCMS. So these are the facts. This is the sequence in which you assemble or disassemble a specific product made from different components. And then in an AI model can do that into a procedure on the fly in the chatbot interface.
Professor Schildgen, do you have another idea?
Yeah. So an answer to your question could be there is no CMS needed anymore. Or another answer could be only one is surviving and everything else will replace. But none of this is true. I think the landscape of tools will become more and more heterogeneous because companies and customers want to have individual things, and then the AI comes on top, and the AI has to have interfaces and connections to all those tools, and it has to be independent of the tools. So it will not be replaced, it will be even more, but the AI is on top.
I learned that quality is meeting the requirements of the customers. So if we have talked about quality already. So if we look in this hall here, I think all these companies who are representing here have different needs. And in the moment, maybe it looks like everybody uses a CMS and so on. Maybe the needs will more differentiate in the future. And maybe in some cases, we still need such tools, and maybe in others, we don't need them anymore. Maybe this will be happening.
Yeah, don't forget that we have a whole market that works with our CCMS. It's developer documentation, and many of the software documentation companies, they just use Stata, Docs as Code, Markdown, ASCII doc, you name it. And this is a market that has developed rather well within the last 10 years and has its separate conferences, unfortunately. And so this will continue probably in your direction.
Well, when you're talking about Docs as Code, will forking be necessary in the future? Doesn't the AI do that? if you want to write some code and the AI just helps you to write it.
You mean like branching for different versions? Maybe it will help you, but you still need to tag the version because you're liable for the version you deliver to the customer.
I think that in some cases, I learned that most of the work, maybe 70% of the tech writers, is repetitive. New version of the same product, new version again, some corrections maybe, and so on. This is very boring stuff, and this is very repetitive. And I think an AI can do that. Do we need all this modularization for these purposes anymore? You say yes.
I say yes.
Yeah, you're selling a tool, huh?
Yes. I say yes.
Yeah, okay.
No, it's not about the modularization the way that reuse. It's just like managing large set of knowledge requires to fragment that. There's that you cannot manage 1 million pages of knowledge with a document that is 1 million pages. You know what I mean? It's like you need to split that into chunks and say, okay, let's sort of edit or augment or enhance the quality of that part of the doc on how to fix that. See what I mean? That's already a chunk. You're already referring to something that is specific in the doc. So it's about at least keeping it as fragment that you can grab, that is consistent in terms of what is the semantic of that, what is the purpose of that. That's what it is. Not necessarily for reuse purpose, but really for from a user perspective. I think so, yeah.
Okay, what do you think? Any remarks, questions, provocations, whatever? Here's a question. Okay, and here comes the microphone. So, Akash.
Hi. So this is not so much of a question, it is a comment that what I'm hearing from different conversations is the undercurrent of us versus them, AI versus us. I think it's less of that. AI, a lot of energy has been put into AI by different companies. So like she was saying, the ship has sailed, it's already in motion. It's fast, it's happening. People are now looking at it as a productivity gain tool. So it's less about, is this going to threaten me in any way? It's more about how can I make best use of it? That's one part of it. In terms of CMS and other tools, it's only going to accelerate more of it. What you were mentioning, that more tools will come out. And it's not just about to store information. There are many other things, compliance, there is forensics. There are many other things that people, retention, for which people need these tools. So they will exist for those reasons as well, beyond just extracting information from them. So all I would say is that AI is there to stay. We need to figure out how to best use it.
Okay. That's another.
Thank you. I have a couple of comments because I get this kind of knee-jerk reaction when I hear certain things. So one is the difference between format for the sake of looks and format for the sake of structure. So semantic structure, I think, is going to be even more important around AI, because if you want the knowledge graphs to be able to recognize relationships, they need to have some sort of a clue, right? So there's an interesting article on LinkedIn about that. And if you type in the phrase, why Johnny can't graph, you're going to, it'll lead you to an article and some really interesting comments by Michael Ian Tosca, which was, I thought, spot on. The second is the CMS. I don't know who named it a content management system back in the 1940s or 50s or whatever, but it doesn't manage content, it delivers content. So you take delivery ready content, publication ready content, and you put that into the CMS. The actual management of the content gets done in Word and Google Docs and in the CCMS and other tools upstream. But a content management system is actually a misnomer. So it's not managing anything in the sense that the author is doing it. The only thing it's managing is like delivery options and analytics and kind of post-publication stuff. So I got that out of my system. Thank you.
Thanks, Rahel. I will say that as tech writers, we are super, super bad at naming things, which I find concerning. But also, you know, to Akash's point, the AI is a tool. And you can apply that tool to solve various kinds of problems. And right now it does some things extremely well and some things not very well at all. And probably it'll continue in that direction. AI is incredibly good at patterns, and it is incredibly good at uncovering relationships, uncovering hidden patterns that maybe you didn't even realize were there. It's actually really bad at creating net new content. So it's never been written before. You have a brand new product. Nobody's ever documented it. We don't really have anything similar to it. It is bad at that. So I would advise you to focus on those kinds of things rather than, as somebody, was it you, was saying, rather than on updates and versions and incremental changes, because it will take those over pretty fast.
Where's the microphone? Here? Ah, okay.
I would like just to share with you a point of view. And I have the feeling that in our future, we will still need high quality documents. What will change through AI is that we will have one-to-one documents. I mean, a very detailed document explaining each single step to get a certain result will be still needed, also to protect the companies that have developed a certain product, okay? But then when you open a manual, sometimes you are overwhelmed by the complexity. What will change is that you can ask the AI, okay, tell me if I was a 5 years boy, and the AI will tell you, okay, push the button, sit down and wait.
Yeah, and this is something that you actually can do on the fly. As I said, if you have modeled knowledge like the pure facts and you deliver that to the AI, and then you have somebody sitting in front of the AI or listening and saying, okay, I'm at this level, please explain it to me so that I can understand it. And this is going to be taken over by AI, different levels of complexity in the answer.
On the fly is a very good term. And I think documentation are exactly the opposite of on the fly, because you create them in advance. You want to have a review, another person checking it, and then publishing it when multiple persons say, this is the single point of truth, this is how our document should look like. And that's a good point. If this is actually needed, you can do so many things on the fly. You can translate on the fly, you can translate it to children language, you can translate it into videos, images, arrows that appear on your classes on the fly. So is documentation needed anymore? I would say yes, because you have the point of truth where all this takes the information from. But on the fly is another level that enables a lot.
I haven't seen any hand from this part of the hall. Don't we have questions or remarks? Even nasty ones? No?
Again, I have a remark. I don't know if we need documentation. We need knowledge.
Oh, knowledge.
Information. We don't need documentation. We need information. I'll give you one number. I read that yesterday or this morning. You know Stack Overflow? Okay. The traffic of Stack Overflow has diminished by 14% in the past months. That's huge. I mean, Stack Overflow is a community website for developers. When you have a question, a problem, you go to Stack Overflow, you run a search, probably someone has explained how to do this with that software. It's almost any software, any technology, it's huge. And basically, first, people went there because developers are lazy. They don't want to read the doc. So instead of reading the doc, the first thing they do, they go to Stack Overflow, they run a search, and they try to find an example on how to do one thing with that technology. And since in 1 month, the traffic has diminished by 14%, just because people are not reading the doc anymore. They just ask Copilot and GenAI. from GitHub. They've read all the doc. They've read all the code. Stack Overflow. But that's what I need. They need knowledge. And then you feed that into, and then people are still lazy. They won't read the doc. They don't need documentation. They need an answer. So instead of going to Stack Overflow now, they ask ChatGPT, how can you write an example of code to do this? Can you write me an example of code to do that? And that's what they want. They don't want, they don't want tech doc.
I made a similar experience in one of the forums I normally read. I asked ChatGPT, and ChatGPT kind of summarized some posts from the forum, and it's easier to ask ChatGPT instead of reading in the forum. But who will be answering questions in the forums in the future if everybody uses? This is the point, because and summarize what if people don't join and write articles.
If AI answers question in forums, the next iteration of the AI will use the AI generated answer. But your point with Stack Overflow versus documentation is like law versus cases in the past. So if I take my car and I am drunk, then the police officer said, this is illegal because of paragraph 37 blah. So it's illegal because there is a law that says that. And I think in America, it's that you say it's illegal because in 1944, somebody who did the same so
That's the UK.
Okay. so you always need somebody else that did the same. And that's like Stack Overflow. Somebody else had the same problem in the past. And you're right, we don't, the main thing that we need is knowledge. And how would it be when we have a camera and a microphone that simply monitors how people do things right, and then it extracts the knowledge out of that? And this knowledge can be used to generate a documentation, but it can also be directly used to answer questions.
Mm-hmm. But that sounds a little bit far in the future, right? No? That's already possible. Wow.
So drunk driving.
That's an interesting topic.
It's actually a great example. How many of you think you are a below average driver?
No one thinks that.
And do those people have drivers? Okay, fair. But like 3 people in this room think they're below average drivers, which is probably not the case, right? It's probably like that half or maybe that half. Oh, they're not here. Sure. Okay. But let's talk about drunk driving for a second and self-driving cars, because this is actually a really good example of what's happening with AI. For the US, 40,000 people die in car crashes every year in the US, most of those from drunk driving or somebody driving drunk and hitting them, that type of thing. The estimate is that the self-driving cars as they stand today, with all their problems, and nobody is arguing that they're perfect, but they would be much, much, much better than the average driver. So instead of 40,000 people, we would lose 10,000 or 5,000. But we've decided pretty clearly as a culture that this level of self-driving capability is unacceptable, right? Nobody's saying, oh, I will give up my car and let everybody self-drive because it will be better. It would be better. I mean, the numbers would be better, but we all think we're better than average. And so we're stuck. And so think about that from the point of view of what's happening with AI and content.
Yeah, but it's an ethical and a legal thing. Even if you say, yeah, okay, this reduces the number of victims tremendously. In a certain case, maybe someone will be asked, so you decided to do to implement this AI, and you knew that a certain percentage of people could be killed by the AI. So why? How can you be? Is this a responsible decision at that point? And this is very difficult to answer. If you know, okay, you can reduce the number from 40 to 10,000. On the other hand, you know, maybe 2% of the drivers will be killed because of something occurred. Yeah, who takes the decision? Who takes the responsibility? That's the question. Are these questions which are not answered yet? Yeah.
I don't have the answer to that one, except that I know that I'm a better driver when I'm drunk.
Okay.
Everybody believes that. Everybody believes he's better drunk than. No, I like that. We were touching something that's very important as a subject, which is the fact that one of the huge danger of AI is having AI generating content that AI consumes and it's deviating. I think it's something that everybody should be conscious of. It's not the fact that AI is good or not, it's how AI will evolve over time, which is just fed by itself. And I think that's interesting. You can look at it from a content writing, content consumption perspective as well. If you use Gen AI to write part of your content and just check rapidly, that's about pretty much good enough, true enough.
Certain risk.
How does that evolve over time if then you use that content to feed the AI that does the consumption side and regenerates content and so forth? So that's, I think that's an interesting problem here.
Okay, so stop. That's the last chance for the right wing to ask a question, because our time is over, close to over now. No questions. Oh, these are the people who know everything already, and these are the more critical ones. The left wing is more critical, of course.
Could you say a few words about generating natural language from source code? Do you have any experience with that yet? Yeah, it's pretty amazing. You just ask ChatGPT to read the source code and format it as a document, and you get something like raw documentation sometimes.
Yeah,
with hallucinations.
That's a very good use case, because developers don't want to write documentation. They want to write the next line of code very soon. I saw when you ask an AI to generate a documentation, it is a white box documentation. So it explains too much internal details about the code, and it doesn't distinguish what is necessary for the user in the end. So I don't want to know how it internally is developed. I want to generate text. How can it be used? Which parameters? What exceptions? In which cases does it behave? How? And not why, because the why can change in the future, and the why is not important. It's the concept called information hiding. So it's not important for the outside how it is internally done. But as I saw it currently, AI talks too much about internal details which are not necessary.
Okay, so as I mentioned, our time is over. Thank you very much to you that you stayed so long with us. I hope you enjoyed the whole day. Thank you very much to the panelists for your presentations, of course, and for being here with us. And so you are now released. You can go and have a nice evening. Thank you very much.